My name is Aaron Merchant. I'm the Senior Director of Early Childhood Education, Policy and Programs at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation, and this is Continuing the Conversation. Beyond excited to speak with AnneMarie Robley. AnneMarie, I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce yourself, and I'm so excited to hear more about Imagine Early Learning Centers.
Thanks so much. I'm so excited to be here. My name is AnneMarie Robley. I am the Director of Curriculum and Oversight at Imagine Early Learning Center. I'm a 26-year veteran of one of the centers in Port Washington, New York. We are an expansive, we're a corporation with 12 centers, and my center is one of the two that are based in Long Island.
So, AnneMarie, 12 centers, are those all in New York State?
So there's one in New Jersey. We basically span the tri-state area. So there's 2 in Long Island, there's 1 in Queens, there's 3 in Brooklyn, then we have some in Manhattan, and then 1 at the Social Security building in Newark, New Jersey. Those are government subsidized centers as well.
So, AnneMarie, 12 different centers. I mean, that's a lot of centers, that's a lot of moving pieces. Can you tell us a little bit about the origin story of the centers? Like, what was the first center, or maybe if there were the first few, and how did that growth occur?
You know, Imagine was formerly called Innovative Learning Center, and the company was created by a founder, Louis Galusis, who started at just providing childcare. I believe our very first center was St. Luke's Roosevelt, which was in a hospital. And then, he partnered with the woman who then took over. Her name is Holly Salzman, and they just grew the company. They found providers that were seeking childcare partnerships, and it just kind of grew from there. I was lucky enough to come on to the center that is a standalone in Port Washington. I had interviewed at one of the other ones that was affiliated with the United Cerebral Palsy School, and then landed a position as an assistant teacher over at the Port Washington Center. So Imagine went on to grow further. We have centers at Mount Sinai Hospital, at the VA hospital. Those are some of the original centers. And then as the years took on and our founder passed, Holly Salzman became the new president and changed the name from Innovative Learning Center to Imagine Early Learning Centers, and then continued to grow the company. And that's when we expanded in the Brooklyns and additional ones at City College. And we've moved on from there.
So based on the regions that where y'all operate, I imagine that you're looking at just a ton of diversity in your student body, in the occupations that their parents have. What is your approach to, because you're also head of curriculum, correct? At the
I am, yes.
Center? Yeah. So how does that level of diversity impact sort of how you approach your job? And then also, what are some of the lessons that you've learned, some takeaways from that that might be useful to other folks when they're encountering, kids coming from just all different kinds of backgrounds?
Sure. This is a great question. I've been working there for 26 years, but only in the last, I would say maybe 5 to 6, was I going around to the other schools and working with other staff and seeing all the different diversity in our children. And in always trying to stay above the learning curve, one of the things that has changed so much is the trajectory of early childhood, and the idea that we really need to know who's in our classrooms and where they come from and the content of which they come from in order to inform curriculum. And I think that has been a gift, because when you have diverse settings in your classrooms, then you have all this rich information to share, right? The children become windows into each other's worlds of their traditions and their cultures, and then we can invite families in to share that. So it just becomes this incredible opportunity for learning. I think what my biggest takeaway as a curriculum specialist is that there is no one size fits all approach, and to really empower the staff and our teachers to brush away all those other expectations that you think needs to go on in an early childhood environment and really become intimate and with families and children and partnership with them, because something as simple as understanding the way a child's feeding time happens at home can be very informative to the classroom when you're working with a toddler age and you're encouraging them to use utensils. So, there's intel everywhere, and it's really, really important that we use that intel to then respect that in our classrooms. We use their home languages. And I don't just mean we use their home languages if they speak a different language. We do that as well. But if a child refers to a grandparent, I always use this example, as honey, then that is our job to also refer to that grandparent as honey. We're not, when we do holiday celebrations, it's really staying away from the stereotypes, but really learning more about who's in your room, where they come from, and how things look in their world.
I love that so much, and the children being windows into each other's lives. I'm gonna think about that for a long time after this conversation.
Oh, I'm glad.
And speaking of innovation, you've also approached innovation from the provider's perspective, and I know that we use the term innovation all the time, but this is genuinely innovative. This approach that your center system has taken on, and so I'm wondering if you'd want to share with us, especially for the folks who weren't able to make it to the summit, what is your incredibly unique approach that is taken when it comes to providers, in a literal sense, being invested in the center?
Sure. I mean, I think we can all agree that retention is a huge issue right now, especially in our field. And Imagine decided in 2018, when Holly Saltzman, the president at the time, she was, I think she was thinking about how she can prove to the staff and all employees of Imagine that she was thinking about them and that she was considering them as part of the equation and the success of Imagine. And for me, I remember hearing about the ESOP, which is employee stock ownership, as like, wait, what? Like, I've never heard of it before. I had no idea what it meant for me. And then when it was presented to us, it seemed like this most incredible gift, right? So here we are becoming invested in the company that we work for. And then we're going to feel that investment in years to come if we choose to stay as part of Imagine's future. And to me, that was like the ultimate, like, neon flashing light that, like, we belong here, that we all play such an important part. And really, all people want to see, all people really want to know, is that they're seen and they're heard. And becoming an ESOP was a way to give the employees a voice and that feeling of ownership. And I think that in our field, that is often disrespected. Telling staff and teachers and administrative professionals that we truly respect what they bring to the table is invaluable. I found that I know that the logistics of the ESOP is still something that we're all trying to grasp and see, because right after we became an ESOP, COVID hit. And COVID just, it bulldozed over everything. And now we're back in the rebuilding stage, and we're really bringing this culture to life. And, when we talk about ownership culture at Imagine, we bring it down to the teachers' levels, and we think about what they need on the front lines, right? So it's like, what do we mean by telling them to think like an owner? Because that's something we say, think like an employee owner. And they look at us like, what do you mean? Well, even in some of the little things that we do, cutting a paper towel in half to make it go to stretch further, having really great partnerships with parents so that they leave us with such a positive feeling that they tell everybody in the community about their incredible experience at Imagine. Employees are our best marketing. Teachers are the reason why people come back, because they hear about this incredible teacher at Imagine that went above and beyond all the time. So it's really showing that kind of ecosystem, how it all comes together, and why their part is so important in our success. I'm not going to say it's a perfectly well-oiled machine yet. We're always working on it. And some of the ways we do that is like, We have a lot of staff recognition. We're always trying to recognize staff. We do educational assistance now, which is really an important piece, trying to level up everyone. And again, just really showing the importance of the job that we do. That's really the ESOP culture. That's the ownership part of it.
And I think that's so important. The approach of both the professionalization and then also, and this is not a real word, but like the businessification
Yeah.
um, of childcare,
Right.
because even in my work, I feel like there is more often than should be this sort of categorization of like, well, there's the business community, and let's talk about the business approach to childcare, and then over here are like childcare providers, as opposed to, and it's so obvious, but oftentimes misframed, that childcare providers of all types are small businesses,
Yeah.
and are part of that sort of capital B business community. Um,
Such a good point. I also think that if the two don't come together, we're not going to fix this industry. It's very important that the business people over here connect with us on the front lines, because how else are they going to know what's truly needed, where to fix the broken, and how to move it forward? You have to talk to the people walking this walk every day. And that was my point in DC. If you don't ask us, then how are you going to know? It's an assumption, and it's never going to be enough. We're always going to come up short. That connection is really, really important.
and to that point, AnneMarie, what are some of the ways that you think the sort of, however you want to phrase, like the broader business community, the chamber community, but what are some ways that capital B business leaders can initiate that interaction with childcare providers? Because I mean, both from personal experience with kids at childcare centers right now, but also just in my line of work, having the opportunity to speak with folks who provide care, there are not a lot of free minutes in the day, right? Like, you're providing care, you're planning for the next day, you're doing 1,000 different jobs under the umbrella of the job of provider. And so, picking up the phone and maybe like calling the Chamber of Commerce or calling the Economic Business Council, you might not have the capacity to do that. So what are some things that those folks can do to proactively connect with you?
I think, I think that someone who's developing a business in a certain community could easily span the area and find out what childcare is in the area, and then do some sort of like resource and referral if they're hiring, whether it's a woman or a man. When they're interviewing, ask them, do you have a childcare solution? Do you have young children? Do you have a childcare solution? If not, hey, we know that Imagine Early Learning Center is a couple of blocks away and they have a reputation for being a really great program. Maybe you should check them out. And I'm saying this, in more of like a relaxed term, but really just the awareness of who's in the area, and also understanding what needs their own employees have. Are you tapping into that? How are you doing retention with your employees? Is childcare one of the reasons why an employee, steps out of a position? And if so, how can you bridge that gap? And it's really, to me, I would think that it's more about word of mouth and referral, and just kind of the knowledge of what's in your area. And then, you could take it a step further, and businesses could go into childcares and say, hey, would you be interested in a partnership? Can you save 5 seats for specific employees for this company? And we'll do, some sort of partnership. I'm not a business person. I'm being very honest with you. I'm a teacher. I am, a passionate early childhood advocate. So the business part of this doesn't come secondhand to me, but I work with very incredibly brilliant people that, work on this all the time. And it's really just about knowing knowing what your employees need, and then either creating a childcare opportunity within your business or partnering with something from the outside, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And building those communication bridges. I think that one of the most repeated phrases that I have when I talk to employers or chambers of commerce is that, like, you've identified that childcare is an issue. That doesn't necessarily mean that you need to become an expert in childcare. There are folks who are experts. And like you said, you're an educator, you understand that there is a connection with the business community, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you need to get your MBA, right? So it's just
Absolutely.
developing those relationships.
But also, if you don't mind me saying, we have to, I'm a director of a program as well. And there has to be a level of understanding about the business aspect of all of this. We have a responsibility to maintain budgets and to stay sustainable. Um, but we also have to do marketing. And some of the ways that we've marketed in the past is, just putting books in a doctor's office with our card in them, so that if parents are in a waiting room, they see, oh, Imagine Early Learning Center. I didn't even realize they were on that street. I think it's being very creative and that out of the box thinking of how we could put ourselves out there, but then we need the help. Meet us halfway and help spread the word about us if you're in that position.
AnneMarie, I think that we could have a whole additional conversation about innovative marketing for childcare providers. I would love to have that. But before I let you go, so it sounds like you are, correct me if I'm wrong here, but it sounds like you are either a lifelong New Yorker or have at least been in New York for most of your life. Is that?
I'm born and raised in Long Island, New York.
So are you having a Yankees summer or a Mets summer?
I'm a full-blown Yankee, all the way, die hard.
It's a good time to be a Yankees fan.
It is.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time. Have really enjoyed this chat, and obviously it won't be the last. And just wanted to say, really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. I was thrilled to receive the invitation, and I look forward to more conversations.